Today's Power Hour pop-up is Excel Essentials Part 2. My name is Becca Blake, and I'm the Director of Communications here at the Chamber, and we are thrilled that you're here with us today. Again, today's part 2 of a 3-part series all about Microsoft Excel. Last week was a basic intro to help you get started with Excel, and today we are going to dive into shortcuts, formulas, and functions. So be sure to save the dates for part 3, which will build on today's session. That's going to be at 10 a.m. next Tuesday, June 24th. We are also recording each session and adding those to your member resource center. So if you miss a power hour, you can always go back and watch it later. And we want to leave as much time as possible for content and to take questions. So if you guys would please just drop your names and your organization in the chat so that we can see who's here with us today. If you have any questions today, I'll be monitoring the chat. We're also going to hold a Q&A at the end. So please leave your questions in there. And today's presenter is Rose Hall. She's the Chamber's administrative assistant and our very own in-house spreadsheet warrior. So we're thrilled to have her here helping us with this today. And Rose, I'm going to let you go ahead and take it away from here.
Okay, so hi. As Becca said, my name is Rose, and I'm the administrative assistant for the Chamber. Again, this is number 2 of a 3-part series. It's designed to kind of help remove the mystery, confusion, frustration out of spreadsheets. So we offer this series to help our members better understand how to use Excel to collect your data, analyze your business, make smarter, more informed decisions, because as you know, when you know your numbers, you can grow your business. So we'll do a quick walkthrough of the interface, recap from last week a little bit. We're going to review rows, columns, cells, take another look at the couple shortcuts that we learned last week. After the recap, we'll look at a few more shortcuts. We'll play with a couple formulas and learn about changing the data types of some cells, among some other things. So I'll be working in the desktop version of Excel today, but everything that we do can also be done in the web-based version. Becca, if you could share that Excel file in the chat window, once we get started, if everybody wants to pull up that Excel file, you should be able to minimize your Zoom window and kind of follow along and do the things with us as we go. All right, so when you first open Excel, and again, this is all just a recap from last week. When you first open Excel, this is in general the screen that you're going to see. On the left, you're going to see the icons for home, new, and open. Across the top, you'll see the options for a blank workbook or a template. In the middle of your screen, you're going to see like all of your recent documents that are shared with you, or if you've marked any documents as favorites, they're going to show up there too. And then at the very bottom of the screen, you're going to see account and options. So we're going to go and look at the options menu really quick. We talked about things on the general tab last week. So the first thing we talked about was live preview. This allows you to hover over different formatting options to see what things look like without actually having to click on the option to change it. If you don't like the pop-ups that Live Preview creates, then you can come in here and turn that off at any time. The next option we looked at was collapsing the ribbon automatically. Personally, I like this option to stay unchecked. It keeps my ribbon open all the time and allows me to see kind of at a glance all of the options that are available to me without additional mouse clicks. Some people prefer the extra room on their screen and like it only to pop out when you hover over it. So if this sounds like you, then you'll want to check this box. The next one that we talked about was screen tips right here. Screen tips allow you to hover over an option, and Excel will tell you what that option is called, what it does, and a little tip or hint on when you should use it. And then lastly, we talked about this section right here. This is how you can set the default font type and size for every spreadsheet you create. You'll just come in here, adjust those. It's set to default right now. I'm Personally, I'm fine with the default, but if you tend to like things to be a little bit bigger, then you can increase that font size and it'll change the size on all of them. All right, we talked about the differences between workbooks and worksheets. A worksheet is just one spreadsheet. A workbook can hold many worksheets or spreadsheets. We'll use the words spreadsheet and worksheet interchangeably throughout this entire series. So if I say spreadsheet or worksheet, just know that I mean the same thing. So if you think of a workbook as a spiral notebook, your spiral notebook can hold lots of pages or worksheets, spreadsheets. Can get confusing. It's okay. We're all a little confused here. We also talked about the parts of a spreadsheet. We talked about where the file name is going to be right up here at the top. We talked about the quick access menu right here. The menu tabs, which are the words across the top. We talked about the ribbon, which is right here in the middle. And then on your ribbon, each individual section has its own kind of designation. So this right here is your alignment section. This right here is your number section, so on and so forth. We talked about the sheet tab down here at the bottom. We talked about an individual cell, which is just one little box. And then we talked a little bit about the dreaded formula bar, which is right here. All right. One second. Okay, so everybody that's going to follow along, go ahead and open that Excel spreadsheet or the workbook. While you're opening it, I'll just tell you this workbook, it contains data about my very much pretend company, Rose's Cleaning Service. So last week we worked in this particular spreadsheet and we learned how to do a couple of different things. We learned about AutoFit, which from the feedback that I've gotten has been life-changing for a few of us. To AutoFit, you just come up here and click on this little teenager cell up here in the corner. That's what I like to call it. Your double-sided arrow by hovering in between two columns and simply double click. When you double click, that will automatically adjust the contents of each cell to fit its contents. We change the total income data to dollars, which it is dollars right now, and then we learned how to adjust the decimal places. So to do that, just click and highlight. Come over here to your number section, and you can increase your decimal places. Now it made dollars and cents, or you can decrease those and keep it just dollars. We learned how to use AutoSum using the AutoSum shortcut up here. And then we also learned that we can click and highlight data, come down here to the status bar area, and we can get some information about that data, like the sum, the number of cells you've selected, and what the average number of each of those cells selected is. We learned how to sort our data, and we also learned how to change our sheet tab to the word data down here at the bottom. Okay, so now for the new stuff. So as we go along today, I'm going to be sprinkling in shortcut keys to kind of help you learn on the job, so to speak. At the very end, there's a slide that lists all the shortcuts that we used, so you can save them for later. That was that very last slide that you guys got a little sneak peek of. All right, so the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to insert a comment. We want to make our spreadsheets as informative as possible so that anybody who pulls it up can look at it at a glance and know what the data means that they're looking at. A great way to do that is by inserting a comment. So we're going to click on cell C6. We can also go to our navigation bar over here and we can just type in C6 and hit enter, and it'll take us right here. We can see that this is where we auto send our totals. The column header says total income, but we want to let people know that this column is total income just year to date for 2025. So to insert a comment, you can right click on the cell and select insert comment, and this little box is going to pop up. Now, whatever you type in this box, let's just put year to date 2025 income. Once you've typed your note, you can either just click away from it or you can hit the escape key. You'll see now there's a little red tab up there at the top. If you hover over it, it'll pop up that little note that we put in. So say we don't need that note anymore, you can right click again and you can delete the comment. So we're going to delete that. There's also a shortcut to adding a comment. So while you're clicked in the cell, you can hit Shift F2 and that will insert a comment. So if you're on a laptop, you might have to do Shift Function F2, just kind of depending on how your laptop keyboard is laid out. But if you're just on a standard keyboard, Shift F2 is sufficient. So for my case, I'm on a laptop, so I'm going to do Shift F2, and there we go. There's our comment. So we're going to put in here, total is year to date for 2025. And then we're just going to click away from it. So there we go. Next, we want to do some calculations to figure out what our income totals were for 2023 and 2024. So last time we used the AutoSum function button up here. This time we're going to use a shortcut key. So if you want to either click on cell E6, or again, you can go up here to your navigation bar and just type E6 and hit enter. It'll take you there. Once you're in E6, the shortcut to do an AutoSum is Alt and then the plus sign. So we're going to do Alt plus sign. Oops. I'm sorry, Alt equals. Alt equals. And then enter. Alt equals. I had my notes wrong. So when you do that, what it's going to do is it's going to highlight those cells. Let me just do it again here. It's going to highlight the cells that it wants to add up together. Excel is pretty smart, so it's going to intuitively know that we want to add the cells that are directly above it. That is exactly what we want to do. So we're just going to hit enter, and it's going to do that for us. So now we want to go and we want to do the same thing to F. So to go over to the right, you can hit your tab button or your arrow button, and then just arrow up. So now you're in F6. And then we want to do the same thing. We want to insert that AutoSum function. So we're going to do Alt equals and then hit enter. So another way that you can do this is you can use the formula wizard. So I'm just going to delete that one and we're going to use the formula wizard. So I'm in F6. We're going to come up here and we're going to hit the little FX symbol. And that's going to pop up the insert function box. Now, again, Excel's pretty smart and it is going to most of the time know what we're trying to do before we know what we're trying to do. So it knows that we want to do a sum. So a sum is basically just adding up cells. So we're going to click on sum. And then we're going to hit OK. Right here, Excel, again, is going to know that we're trying to add cells F2 through F5. So we're just going to leave it alone, leave it exactly how it is because it's smart. And then we're just going to hit OK. And it's going to pop it down and it's going to add all of those numbers together for us. So we want to double check that number and make sure that it's adding what we think it's adding. Let's click and highlight those cells and then come down here to your status bar area and look at the sum, and we can see that that 90,499 matches exactly what our function inserted right here. Anybody have any questions so far? Okay, we'll move on. So you can use this formula wizard to step you through just about any formula that you can think of. It'll add, subtract, it'll find your averages, all the way up to finding the standard deviation for you, or it can compare two spreadsheets to find common data between the two. So it's a pretty powerful tool. It'll do a lot more than just adding and subtracting. Okay, so the next thing we're going to learn how to do is we're going to learn how to delete rows. But don't be scared because we're all professionals here and we can do this. So right now you should be in cell G6. We want to go to the beginning of the row. So we're just going to hit our home button. When you hit home, it's going to take you to the very beginning. If we wanted to go to the very end of the row that has data, we can hit the end button and it's going to take us to the end. But we want to stay on home, so we're going to hit home. So when we're right here on our home, I'm sorry, when we're right here on A6, what we're going to do is we're going to select the whole row. So to do that, you're going to do Shift spacebar. Shift spacebar will select the entire row. And I'll click away and I'll show you again. Shift spacebar. Now that we have this whole row selected, we are going to delete this row. I know we just worked really hard to make this row, but we're just going to delete it. So to delete this the quick way, we're going to do Control minus, and it's gone. But now that it's gone, I've changed my mind. I don't want it to be gone anymore. I made a mistake. So let's say we want to undo that mistake. So there's a shortcut for undo. Control Z. Control Z is going to undo what we just did. If you want to undo several things, you can undo several things. Just keep hitting Control Z until you get to where you want to stop. You should also have these undo and redo buttons in your quick start menu up here at the top that do the exact same thing. And if you hover, you'll get that screen tip that says what you're going to undo or what you would redo if you were going to hit those buttons. Okay, so let's go back to cell A1. The fast way to get back to cell A1 is to use Control Home. Control Home is going to take you back to the very first cell in the spreadsheet. So do Control Home, and now we're all the way back at the very beginning. So once we're in A1, I want to select that whole column. Now to select the row, we used the spacebar. We're going to use the spacebar again, but we're going to use Control spacebar. Instead of Shift spacebar, we're going to use Control spacebar. And again, all of these shortcuts are going to be on that very last slide. Once we have this column highlighted, we want to insert one. So inserting is the opposite of deleting. Deleting was Control minus. So adding must be Control plus. So we're going to do Control plus, and it's going to insert a new column. Once we have our new column, let's name it date. And then hit enter. We're going to enter some dates in here. Now, I know dates aren't super relevant to what is in our spreadsheet right now, but you never know when you're going to need to add a date to a spreadsheet. So this is all good info. So once we're in cell A2, I want you to type March 1st, 3-1. Or you could also do 3/1 and then hit enter. Well, okay, that's a date. It shows up 1 March, but we don't like this date. We want it to be an actual date. So we want to reformat that cell. So we're going to click on the cell and you can right click, format cells, or we can use the shortcut key and do control and then the number 1. That's going to pull up your format cells box. So once we have our format cells box up, we can see over on the left-hand side, it's got all different kinds of categories. And once you've selected the category of formatting you want, you'll have specific options for that category. So we don't necessarily need this to be a custom number because there is a date option in here. So let's click date. And it gives us all different choices for how we want that date to show up. We're just going to keep it simple here. So we're just going to do that one right there. And up here in the sample, it's going to show you what that will look like. So we just want it to say 3/1/25. So we're going to select that and we're going to hit OK. It's now made this your date. So let's say we want to copy this date down to the bottom, but we don't want to copy just the same thing. We want this to say 3/2, 3/3, 3/4. Say their consecutive dates. So down in the bottom right-hand corner of your cell, there's this little extra box. If you hover your mouse over that box, you'll see your cursor is going to change. When your cursor changes, you're going to click and drag down, and it's going to autofill your dates all the way down. Now, if you did not want to do that, let's do Control Z to go back. Want to do that, and you want all of these to say March 1st, you can copy this cell and paste it in the others. So copying is Control C, and you'll see it gets the marching ants around the cell to show that's the data that we've copied. And then we can click on the cell below it and hit enter, and it's going to copy that and paste it right there. You can also copy and paste in multiple cells at once. So let's just do a Control C. So we're going to copy that again. We've got the marching ants that shows us that we've copied that one. And let's highlight 2 cells. Once those 2 cells are highlighted, we want to just hit enter, and it's going to pop that information right there. Super easy way to copy and paste. You can also use this data formatting to make sure fractions show up correctly. So if you're writing a recipe and you're doing like 1/3, I'll just demonstrate here really quick. If you're doing like 1/3, hit enter, it's going to show up January 3rd. It is not January 3rd. We want it to show 1/3. So you can click in that cell. We're going to do control and then the number 1. We're going to choose fraction. And we just want it to be a regular 1 digit on either side of the divider. So we're just going to do 1 digit and hit OK. And then we're going to do 1/3. There you go. Now it shows up 1/3. Any questions so far?
None so far.
Okay. So now we're going to insert another new column to put in some more data. So we're going to go and we're going to do Control Home to go back to A1. And then we want to select this whole column again because we're going to insert more columns at the beginning. So once we are in A1, we're going to do Control Spacebar to select the row, or I'm sorry, to select the column. And then we're going to do Control Plus to add a new column. And then let's name this column Sales Rep. and hit enter. And then let's just type in some names. We're going to do Sam Johns. We're going to do Tom Smith. And then let's do Sarah Waters. And then let's do Chris Pratt, because who doesn't love Chris Pratt? And then we're going to come up here and we're going to auto fit our column to make it wide enough to fit everything. Again, we just got that double-sided arrow and double clicked and it made it wide enough. So this is great. We've got all of our sales reps in this column. But now I have a problem. I want my sales reps to be in alphabetical order by last name. How do we do that? There's lots of different ways to do everything in Excel. This is going to be the easiest, most simplified way for you to do this. What you're going to want to do is split the information in this cell into two different cells. We want first name to be in a cell, and then we want the last name to be in a cell. Okay, so it's kind of a multi-step process. All of it we've covered already and done before, so it's not hard. So since we're going to split into two columns, we want to insert another column because we need two now. We're going to let this first column be our first name, and then we need to insert another column in between A and B for our last name. So we're going to go to B1. We're going to do Shift Spacebar to select the whole column. And then we're going to do Control+ to add us another column. Whenever you add columns, they're always going to add to the left of whatever cell or column you have highlighted. When you insert a row, the rows go across. It is always going to insert above the one that you've selected. So now we're going to use a wizard that's going to split these columns for us. Okay. So we're going to select A2 through 5, A2 through A5, because that's the data that we want to split. Then we're going to come up here to where it says data and click on that. Once we've clicked on the data menu tab, we're going to come right over here to this data tools section, and we're going to hit text to columns. Now the text to columns wizard is going to pop up. It looks really scary, but it's not, I promise. Excel is really, really smart, like we found with the formula bar and the formula box. It's going to know intuitively what you are trying to do. Unless you're trying to do something super crazy, most of the time it's going to know what you're doing and it's going to prompt you through that process. So we've already told it column A has our information and we want to split it. The spaces in between our words have a character, which is a space. So we're going to choose a delimiter right here. It's already highlighted, so we just hit next. And then we want to tell what the delimiter is. So the delimiter is a space. It's going to give us a little preview down here and show us how it's going to divide up that data. And that preview looks right. I want the first names in one column, and then I want the last names in the next column. So that's exactly what we want it to do. So we're going to hit next. Now it's going to ask us, where do you want this data to go? It is going to guess where it wants to go, where it wants us to put it. And in this case, it would be right. But if it was not right, we could always hit this little arrow and we could choose somewhere else. It's already selected, so we don't need to select it again. And then hit this button to go back. All of this looks great. Perfect. So we're going to hit finish. The wizard goes away, and now our data is in two separate rows. First name, last name. There are some limitations to this. splitting columns, if you are using this a space in between words as a delimiter, if the last name has two words with a space in between it, like Van Horn would be a last name that could have a space in between it. It's going to want to put each one of those words into its own cell. So you might have to do a little adjusting once you finish the wizard to make that happen. But in general, this is the way to do it. Okay, so now we need to rename our columns to reflect the changes that we've made. So we're going to go back to the very first cell that has data. So again, we're going to do Control Home to go back to the very first. Once we're there, we're going to change that to be rep first name. Perfect. We also want to change B1 to be last name. So to go to the next cell to the right, we're just going to hit our tab button. Tab will take you to the right, the same way arrowing will take you to over there, or you can just use your mouse and click over there. So now that we're in B1, we're going to call this rep last name. And then we can just hit enter. Now we can see we don't have quite enough room to hold all of that information. So again, we're going to click up at here on our teenager cell, and we're going to get our double-sided arrow, and we're going to auto-fit all of those columns. So now you can see these cells over here that we added, they look a little bit different. And we don't want them to look different. We want it to look exactly the same as all of this looks over here. The biggest thing that I'm noticing is that these over here have a border around them, and these do not. So what we want to do is we want to put the same border around those that are over here. So we can just click and highlight our data. We're going to go into that formatting menu by doing Control and the number 1. Once we're in the format cells, we can come over here where it says border. And we want there to be an outline. And we also want each individual cell to have its border around it too. So we choose outline and we choose inside. And then we click OK. And now you can see these all have the same border. Now we want to sort all of our data by last name of the rep. So we can come over here. We can click on our teenager cell to select everything. And then let's go back to our home tab. And then we're going to click on sort and filter. I like to do custom sort because it gives more control over what order you're sorting in. So let's go to custom sort. Once you're in the custom sort box, you can tell it that your top row has a header, which it does, and we don't want that top row to be included in the sort. So we want to sort this by our rep last name. And then click OK. And it just took all of our information and it sorted it by rep last name. You'll see everything on the rest of the line or the rest of the row stayed with its owners. So let's say we want to do another level of sort. So let's come over here, click on sort and filter, custom sort. We're going to add another sort. So first we want it to sort it by the last name of the rep. So we're going to leave that. But then once we have it by the last name, we want to do client type and location. But we want it to do client type and location first. So we're going to click on that line and we're going to move it up. So now it's going to sort it by client type location and then by the last name of the rep. So we're going to click OK. And you can see it just reordered all of our data again, but it kept all of our totals, kept our comment, all of the general formatting. So super important, we'll just cover this one more time. Safely saving your Excel spreadsheet or your workbook. Super, super important. If you don't save it, it will be gone. So to save it, you can use your little save button up here, and that will just save it to the default place that you have set. Or you can do File, Save As, and this is going to look different based on how your computer's set up. I like to save things to my desktop. And we're going to name this Excel Session 2. Done. And then we're going to save it. And it's saved and all done. So let's pull up all of our keyboard shortcuts here. These are all of the different shortcuts that we learned today. There's a lot of them. So we learned how to copy and paste and then undo. We learned how to go to the very first cell, the very last, go to the start of a row, to the end of a row. We learned how to select all the different things. We learned how to insert and delete and even insert comments and auto sums. Okay, so that's all we have for this time. So we learned how to use the formula wizard. We learned about changing data types and when you should change them. We learned all of the shortcuts that you see on the keyboard shortcut slide. All of this is designed to make you faster whenever you're building and changing all of your data. So next week is going to be the final session. We're going to learn about inserting tables, charts and graphs to add some color and visuals to your data. We'll also talk about different file types, and we'll talk about what the best way to look at and change data that you've exported from maybe your accounting software. So I hope you all join us.